Funny story is I was trying to dabble a little bit in this back in the 2008, 2009, I would probably say. And then around 2010, 2011, started to, pick up a few side projects while I'm still working corporate, just to see if this was something I wanted to do. And I don't know if you're aware of these escape rooms, but back in 2010, 2011, there were hardly any of them. There was only
of
a
course.
handful,
I'm totally aware
maybe.
of the escape room. Yep.
Yeah, there was now there's one in every block, but back then there weren't any. And so it was like 2 or 3, and I remember an entrepreneur had called me from, way up in Connecticut, and he's like, hey, I'm opening up, one of the very first escape rooms. I wasn't connecting the dots as to what exactly he needed. He's like, getting a lot of these companies that are coming in and they're doing this, and they're asking us, well, how do we communicate? How do we do? So I was like fascinated. So I went up there and I said, well, do you have a control room? And we would watch how all of these companies' employees act and behaved in the room and who solved their way out and who didn't. And then we decided, why don't we start profiling them? That's a lot of my background, is a lot in psychology, profiling and working with the emotional intelligence. And I work with a lot of the C-suite folks to try to figure out, how they act and behave and what the culture looks like.
Right.
So we're like, what if we kind of, reverse this a little bit? What if we put in the room some of the most type A type CEOs we can find? So I started profiling a whole bunch of them within the region, and I found like 5 of the most
type A.
You can just only imagine, right?
Everybody fighting in the
bull
room.
in a china shop.
Oh, yeah.
So we put them
especially in like tight quarters, right?
Oh my goodness, it was great. And so we put them in the room, and they have 60 minutes to solve their way out. And as soon as they start, I go back to the control room so I could listen and see everything. And what do you think? Did they solve their way out?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, you're right. You're spot on. They didn't. A lot of the things we would hear is, that's great, go ahead, execute on that. Good idea. Go ahead and do that.
Right, because they're used to being a leader. Right?
It is, and then too many of them in the room. They didn't solve their way out. So then we started profiling those very relationship building, people oriented, high energy. No matter what instruments or tools you're using, whether it's an I or type that's really about the people. So we went to a nearby university, found a couple sororities, fraternities, ordered a heck load of pizza because you got to feed these kids first, right? Yep. Had them do some of these profilers, and I mean, we plucked the ones that were like the most bubbly, outgoing you can get. We put 6 of them in the room, and what do you think? Did they solve their way out?
I'm guessing not. No.
Yeah, you know what? It was a happy hour on steroids, and so they were having a blast. If they could have stayed in the room for 4 hours, they would have.
Right. Yep.
My favorite of all groups was the very analytical ones.
Okay.
We're talking MIT, aerospace engineers.
Right.
I mean, the whole pocket square math.
Right.
Now they're probably running some AI company, right? These guys. We put them in the room, and with this one, Chris, I did something a little different. I actually told them, listen, before we start, this fire extinguisher here, it's part of the room. It's not a prop. It's part of code. Don't touch it. So when I left, the owner came to me and started saying, well, why would you say that? I'm like, I have a little hunch. Let's go back. We put the headphones on. And let me ask you, do you think that these very analytical, very methodical, did they solve their way out?
I'm guessing not, based on how you're communicating.
Yeah, right. It's always the tale of the story. It's try to get that.
Yeah.
A lot of people say yes, they would.
Right. I would think that
they got very close. Yeah. But here's what happened: about 3-4 minutes in, they couldn't help themselves. They actually lifted the fire extinguisher off the wall, even though I told them not to.
Right.
Turning it upside down, they're looking at the expiration date, thinking it's a 4-digit code to open a lock, and they got fixated.
Oh, jeez.
Dude, it was wild. They spent about 22 minutes just fixated on this. So time ran out. Classic example of paralysis by analysis, right?
Yep.
So I share this story because, A, it's a metaphor for how companies act and behave. But that moment in time, we started getting some requests from these companies saying, hey, that's some interesting stuff.
Right.
What are we doing for our managers so they can understand these dynamics? What are we doing to build high-performing teams? What are we doing for our leadership development? Because the gap between leadership and management is significant.
Right.
And so that is really what got me into thinking, you know what? There's a need. Mm-hmm. We certainly can do things in a very different way in our model. Well, that's kind of where I decided, all right, hasta la vista, corporate, and hello, Straxo. And that's how it happened.